track as well. The time now is 9:42 on Monday, the 27th of January, the final Monday of this month. Now, the 350-year-old world-famous Royal Observatory in Greenwich is home to Greenwich Mean Time. It means the time for every clock anywhere in the world is set from that exact point in southeast London within the grounds of the beautiful Greenwich Park, a royal park. The observatory led the world in astronomy before rockets were going up into space, and it's still regarded for many people as a home of astronomy. It's why it's interesting that the observatory had a show on Saturday and has another one coming up next month, if you missed that one, about astronomy and Islam. What's the link? What does one have to do with the other? Why have these shows and presentations, which have been a sellout every month for the past 7 years, been so popular? To answer those questions and more, I'm joined by the director of the New Crescent Society, which co-hosts the planetarium show at the Royal Observatory. He's a PhD student at Cambridge University, although he did his undergraduate degree and master's at Oxford University. Imad Ahmed, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I feel very honoured and privileged to be here. Thank you so much.
It's a privilege to be here. Listen, I've got a list of questions that I want to get straight on with. But reading that out, you crossed from Oxford to Cambridge. You've studied in both.
I have.
Not many people make that crossing. It's not far apart, but you've done it.
I feel very privileged. I feel very lucky to have been in both places. And there's a soft rivalry between the two places. And when I'm at Cambridge, people always ask me, are we better than Oxford?
Yeah.
And I just have to
sit on the fence.
I have to be very diplomatic and say, each place has its own specialities. Oxford, I think, is really known for politics. Many prime ministers came from Oxford, and Cambridge, I think, is more well known for science. You had Isaac Newton, for example, at Trinity College.
That's very diplomatic. One word answer. University boat race. Who do you support?
I have to go to my roots. I'm sorry, Cambridge. I'm always with Oxford, yeah.
Okay, right. Let's get on with this interview now. I've got to declare immediately my selfish reason for having you on tonight. I heard about the show at the Royal Observatory Planetarium in Greenwich on Saturday. I really wanted to go. The only reason why I couldn't go was because I was working. Then I thought, let's get you on the show, talk about what I and many others will have missed, because it's a subject a lot of us don't know about, this link between astronomy and Islam.
That's right. And we can think about the link between astronomy and Islam in at least two ways. And I would submit a third way as well. But the first way that astronomy and Islam is linked is through the ritual practice of the Muslims. And I think that's quite unique amongst world religions today. So the prayer times for the Muslims are determined by the position of the sun in the sky every single day, 5 prayers. And the months progress through the sighting of the new crescent moon. And in the past, not so much today because we use Google Maps, Muslims would be using stars, not just for navigation, but because their prayers are oriented towards Makkah. And as Muslims started to grow in number from different parts of the world, whether in Spain or in India, they needed to know which direction do I look for prayer. And so astronomy was very much part of that. So certainly inspired by the practical ritual need for astronomy, we had almost an explosion in the interest in astronomy in the Muslim world. And some of the greatest astronomers that we have across all the world actually come from of a Muslim heritage, and much of modern day astronomy is actually based on the works conducted by Muslim scientists and astronomers, starting really in the 8th or 9th century into the medieval period.
You're talking about people like Al-Farghani in the 9th century, who wrote Elements of Astronomy on the Celestial Motion. He's known in the West as Fraganus, or Al-Fragan. I don't know how to pronounce it, but they've sort of westernized his name, but they were leading astronomers.
Absolutely, and there were a great number of them as well. Some of my favorite ones are Al-Biruni, who was an explorer. Actually, he wrote about the world as he came to explore it, but he was also an astronomer. And in the 10th century, he calculated the circumference of the Earth, accurate to 0.3% or 16.8 kilometers.
Yeah,
and this is remarkable. Yeah, because at the time he was doing this, we had other parts of the world not knowing that the Earth was spherical in its shape. Another one of my favorite astronomers, who's also a poet, a very famous poet, you might have heard of him, Omar Khayyam.
Yes.
Persian poet. And he developed a calendar called the Jalali calendar. And a version of it is used in Iran today, actually. And it's a solar calendar, but it's more accurate to the sun than our own Gregorian calendar. It only loses a day every 5,000 years or so.
No way.
Right. So the Gregorian calendar, every 4 years we correct for a year.
Leap year.
A leap year. And actually every 3,000 odd years we have to correct for another day. But Omar Khayyam's calendar, after 5,000 years, you only need to correct. So this is an incredible achievement occurring in the Muslim world. And I have no doubt that this came from their faith.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because a lot of people, you see, they will say that science and religion don't sit comfortably together. It's either one or the other. You either believe in science or you believe in religion, but not both. But this shows the coming together of both.
Absolutely. And these astronomers were often actually religious scholars as well. And they saw no distinction between the exploration of the skies and of nature and the exploration of the self and spirituality. In fact, there's a verse in the Quran which says, we will show them the signs of God in the horizons, in the skies, and within themselves. So this exploration of spirituality and science has no real distinction from a Muslim historical perspective.
Now, Astronomy and Islam, the show which you've been doing at the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, is one of the most popular shows across the museum, and it's sold out, as far as I know, every single month, and that's been going on for the past 7 years. What makes it so popular? What is it that you're doing there?
It's absolutely amazing. You know, it began, and we said, let's just put on one show and see what happens. And we put it on, and then about half an hour later, there were no more tickets left. And I thought there was a problem on the website, but actually it had sold out.
Really?
And they said, let's do it another month and another month. And after 3 months, they said, wow. And I think what's happened is that this is a show that is very attractive to the Muslim community, because they're aware faintly that we have a heritage in astronomy. And here you have the Royal Observatory Greenwich, which you've mentioned is the historic home of time.
Yeah.
And the home of astronomy. Everyone, I'm from Bangladesh. When I go to the village in Bangladesh, they've heard of Greenwich.
Absolutely, yes.
So this coming together of Greenwich and the heritage of Islam to astronomy brings together a very attractive package, I think. And I think it's the best-selling show because we've sold out every single show. That's 11,000 tickets over 7 years. But I've been told there is one more show called Super TED Space Adventure, which has more frequent shows than us. So.
Yeah, we won't talk about that. That's not fair because they got more frequent shows. No, that is terrific though, what you're doing. The people who come along, are they all Muslims? They're
not all Muslims. I will say the majority are Muslims because the show was designed to engage Muslims on their own terms. But I've been fascinated to see, I'd say about 25% of the people who attend aren't Muslims. And from those people who aren't Muslims, I think they've inspired me in many ways that Muslims haven't. Because
in what way?
I've grown up knowing that we pray according to the sun and we fast according to the moon. But just that amazement and fascination, because they will tell me, I've never thought of time being related to astronomy or nature. Time for me is mechanical. Time for me is from my phone. I look at my alarm clock. So that real connection with nature that Muslims are still holding on to is something quite inspiring, and I think it's something Muslims still have to offer the modern world today.
Okay, let me put to you something that isn't very aspiring, speaking as a Muslim now. You're director of the New Crescent Society. Twice a year, I can guarantee heated conversations, arguments over when Eid, the festival which follows Ramadan, the month of fasting, and then 2 months after that, the Bakr Eid as well. So two Eids we have in a year. There's always controversy. Who's following what calendar? Is it going to be on this day or that day? We have Google Maps. We have telescopes. We have spaceships in the sky. We have the International Space Station. Why can Muslims not decide or work out that Eid is going to be on this day or the other? It always waits till the night before and people fall out.
That's an excellent question. Excellent question. And I really hope that New Crescent Society can help towards solving this problem.
Please do.
And I think to understand this, we need to understand how the Islamic calendar works. So the Islamic calendar is a lunar visibility calendar, which means each month begins when you go and see the new crescent moon. And a month lasts for as long as it takes for one new crescent to the next new crescent. Now that's 29 and a half days. You can't have a month which is 29 and a half days long, of course. So the Muslims average it out. So half the year will have 29 days and half the year will have 30 days. And we'll know how long a month is because you go out and look for the new crescent at the end of the month. And if you see the moon, the month has ended, you have 29 days. Or if not, you add one more day and that month will have 30 days. Now, the Muslims in the UK, like myself, are often from migrant backgrounds. And when Muslims first came to the UK, they did actually go out and try and look for the moon. But they came across a problem, which is a very British problem, the weather. They started to go out and look for the moon month on month on month, and they said, we can't see the moon. We can't seem to run the calendar here. And as part of my research, I've actually found some really charming letters written by Muslims sent to India saying, we can't see the moon. What should we do?
What do we do? Yeah.
And they came up with different solutions, but the main solution has been to outsource, if you like, the moon to different countries. So some mosques will follow, for example, Saudi Arabia, others follow South Africa or Turkey or Morocco.
That's right, yeah.
But each of these different countries naturally see the moon or have different ways of calculating the calendar. So as long as we're following different countries, we're always going to be divided. And New Crescent Society came along and said, well, why don't we look for the moon in our own skies? And we began that process, and we found that actually if you go out and look for the moon, you can see. It is cloudy, but we just need to work together. So for example, if we see the moon in Birmingham, we might not see it in London that month, but then we might see it in Colchester or Chelmsford or Cambridge. And we've got sighters now across the country. We've got sighters in Jersey, in Orkney Island, Scotland, Wales, really everywhere. We find that when we work together, we can have a perfectly viable Islamic calendar in the UK. And one of our kind of catchphrases is, let's bring the moon back home. We sent it to different countries and it's caused this debate, but we can take matters into our own hands now.
Okay, let me put this to you, Imad Ahmed. The next date for a moon sighting is this Thursday.
Correct.
30th of January. You're a Londoner.
Yeah.
Give us Londoners some tips on how we, whatever the weather, can see if there's a moon.
It's an amazing question, and what is actually incredible, you can see the moon very well, even from central London.
But it's cloudy?
If you can't beat the clouds, but the light pollution is not an issue, funnily enough. I always used to think that.
Yeah, I used to.
So to see the new crescent moon, you will see it on Thursday. And it's very, very easy to see. Even children can see it. Very easy technique. All you have to do on Thursday is watch the sunset. And that's going to be after 4:30. And once you've seen the sunset, you mark the place the sun has set, and the new crescent moon will arise somewhere near the sunset. And in the UK, towards the left of the sunset. If I was in Australia, we're upside down, so to the right of the sunset. But wherever you are, you just see the moon, the new crescent moon, emerge somewhere near the sunset. And that's all there is to it. And if you don't know where the sun sets in London, you can Google it. If I lived in Greenwich, I'd type in sunset Greenwich. If I lived in Croydon, I'll type in sunset Croydon. And that's actually how I find most of my moon sighting locations. Anywhere you have a clear view of the western horizon and the sunset, that is where the new crescent is seen. Because on the day of the new crescent, the crescent and the sun are actually rising and setting together. So observe the sunset, wait around 20 minutes, and you're going to see the moon on Thursday. And believe me, if you're not looking for it, you won't see it. So it's going to be the most thin moon, the thinnest moon you've ever seen, and it's a splendid moon. And when you see the moon, you're going to feel fantastic. Actually, the Arabic...
You said it well. Go on.
No, well, the Arabic word for moon is hilal.
Yes.
And the word hilal, the root of it means a flash of light, but it also means to scream out in joy. And there's an older Hebrew word related where you get the phrase hallelujah, hilal, hallelujah, to scream out in praise of Yahweh, God. So this idea is you're going to see that moon and scream out in joy.
Right, Imad, I'm only looking at the time here. We're running out of time, and I want to get this question because myself and Carla, who's sitting behind you, my wonderful producer, we were having this conversation earlier today, and I thought if we get time, I want to ask you this. But because of what you've just said, I do want to ask you this.
Please go
because
ahead.
of the feeling that you say people get when they see this, and it's this: when When we get a full moon, look, we're mainly made of water.
Yes.
The moon affects the tides, and anyone who lives by the seas or goes on the seas knows that how it affects the tides. Does a full moon affect us as human beings, whether it's our mood, our health, whatever? I understand another colleague of mine said today that a lot of NHS hospitals, they see a rise in admissions when it comes to a full moon. I don't know how true that is or not, but what I'm asking is, you know a lot about the moon. Does it affect us as human beings, our moods, our health?
Actually, there are studies into this. There was a study published in 2013. It's actually on the BBC website. And they noted that in a group of people who they studied over a period of time, that their hormone levels, their sleep, and some other features of the circadian rhythm was affected by the full moon. And this was not related to brightness. They were kept in dark conditions, and yet their bodies were related to the moon. So what actually I'm trying to say in New Crescent Society is, when you're looking at the moon, it's not something fun to do. It's not just connecting to astronomy, but you're actually connecting to yourself. There's something in your circadian rhythm, and perhaps even deeper in your spirit, that is connected to the cosmos out there.
That is fascinating. What an answer that is. That just makes me want to find out more and learn more. And that then takes me on to this, because you are back at the Royal Observatory in Greenwich on the 23rd of February. Now, tell us a bit about that, how we can get tickets, because I know there'll be people who will want to know now how to go along, but they're always sold out. So when can people start getting tickets?
They're always sold out. The February tickets have gone on sale, but they'll be on sale monthly, and we've got a range of different shows. If you want to come to the show, I think go to Google and type Astronomy and Islam Greenwich. We've actually got 5 different shows. We've got a moon, sun, star show. We've got a special kids show, and we have a show around the birth date of the Prophet Muhammad, where we talk about how astronomers dated his birthday to April the 20th using 8th century astronomical sources. So we've got 5 different shows. They're all amazing. We've, sold out every single one, so don't miss out.
And you have sold it perfectly well. A lot of interest triggered there. Imad Ahmed, Director of the New Crescent Society, thank you so much for coming in and being our guest tonight.
Thank you. It was an honour to be here. Thank you so much.
Pleasure was ours. You've been listening to BBC Radio London. It's Asad Ahmed. I'm going to be back next week at 7 o'clock. You can listen back to any part of the show, including that fantastic interview just now with Imad Ahmed on the BBC Sounds app or on BBC Sounds online. Have a great week. Have a very good evening. Good night.
On the BBC Sounds app, on your smart speaker,
play BBC Radio London,
and on your radio.
The sound of London. BBC Radio London.
At 10.